The students that make up Just Us Performance Troupe for Social Justice have come from all over campus to enroll in COM 211, Storytelling and Culture. Throughout the semester, they have become autoethnographers. Autoethnography is a research method that says before you start researching other people and their experiences and their culture, you need to understand your own experience, your own stories, and how those have shaped who you are and the culture that you're in. Today you're going to hear 16 stories. Each story that is told was lived through the body that performed it. They wrote this script, they named their show, and this is their performance. I've been honored to be their director and their professor. Please stay for a conversation with the cast after the show.
Why social justice?
Because everybody deserves the same opportunities.
And this world is not equal to everyone that inhabits it.
And that needs to change.
Don't you think?
Boom. Boom. Boom.
7th grade. I'm a new student in town. This is nothing new though. This is the 5th school I've been to. Brand new without a friend. I gravitated to what I knew or what I heard. We pop bottles, poured on the models. See, this is how I became friends with Jerron. J-Ro was my boy. He took me in as his own, but what we shared was a love for rap. And not just rap, the same rap at that. So all year in computer class, we'd finish our work early to browse the internet, normally ending up on DJ booth, listening to Anything Cash Money records. And soon after that, I would go home to a concert of the same music, only DJ'd by my older brother. Just like my older brother, J-Ro is just like the rest of my family. Eventually, listening to rap turned into us rapping ourselves. We would drum on the lunchroom table to add to the beatboxing. It's a lunchroom studio where we all freestyled and laughed at whoever choked on the beat, usually me. That is until one day, a couple of kids came up asking me,
Why are you trying to be black?
Who do you think you are?
Calling me a wigger. See, I mentioned Jerron being just like the rest of my family. He's kind, accepting, funny, and black. Come from a family of 11, where 6 of my 8 siblings are black, and we're all incredibly unique. 10% of all marriages in the United States are interracial couples. That's nearly the same prevalence of lefties out there. My mom remarried to a black man, and I'm cool with it. I just wish everybody else were.
I am very aware that I am in a wheelchair, but not for the reason that you might think. I think about my wheelchair in the same way I assume you think about walking. When there's a step and you have to watch your footing, I do too. Or when people stare at me, especially children. See, my wheelchair is shiny and it's right about eye level and it's bright green and it draws their attention. And kids have no filter. They say whatever comes to mind. And I love it. They're not prejudiced. They're just curious. I was walking through my local mall one day and I noticed a young girl with a mother walking hand in hand just behind me. And I saw the little girl grab her mom's arm and said, Mom, she's pushing herself. And the mom said, Yes, dear. But Mom, she's pushing herself. And the mom said, Yes, I know, she's pushing herself. And the little girl asked, But Mom, how does she push herself? And the mom just said, Because she's strong, she can push herself. And then the little girl stopped, planted her feet, and was thinking really hard. And I had to slow down so I could eavesdrop. And she finally says, I'm strong too. I can push myself. I was in my local Target one day, and I noticed a little boy about knee high, and he was staring profusely, slack-jawed and wide-eyed. And he grabbed on his mom's shirt, and he tugged it, and he asked, Mom, what's wrong with her? And he repeated himself over and over again. Each time, his mother's shh grew louder and louder. Finally, she grabbed a hold of his arm, kneeled down, shaking him, said, Don't look at her. Don't talk to her. Shh. I couldn't help myself. I turned around and I just said, Hey, it's okay. I break my bones easy, that's all. Be respectful, but remember, you will always be ignorant if you don't ask. To be classified as a rare disorder in the United States, fewer than 200,000 individuals must be affected. It is estimated that there are between 25 and 50,000 people with osteogenesis imperfecta.
I love my first grade experience. Miss Sarah's class was so fun. My favorite days were the days you got to go to the library and pick two, like Panera. But I remember there being a day that was very different from the usual routine. We were putting away our cute little math blocks when a teacher walked in and asked for Miss Flores, aka me. We stepped out into the hall and she told me I was no longer going to be spending my reading time with my friends, but in a new classroom. I didn't think of it much. They gave me apple juice and goldfish, so I was a happy kid. She told the new class that we were going to have to practice our oral reading skills because on Friday we would have a test. Turns out the class was for those who were not fluent in English, or ESL, which made no sense because not trying to brag on first grader me, but I was pretty darn good at reading. My fellow peers, however, struggled to understand the material, so the entire week I decided I would help them translate. According to the U.S. Department of State, not all students become competent in one language to have an easy transition into a second language. I basically became a teacher assistant paid in Teddy Grahams. We read into these weird macaroni-shaped phones until Friday finally came around.
Candace, it's your turn.
I stepped out into the hall and saw two adults sitting there, ready to hear me read. I wasn't nervous. I opened the book and read like I usually did. With a "what are you doing in this class" kind of face, they told me to pack my things and go back to my original classroom. I missed an entire week's worth of material in my no problemo with English class because they assumed I could not speak it. I look back now and wonder, why didn't they just ask my teacher in the first place? I have now realized that by the color of my skin and about what people assume about my ethnicity, I will be marginalized as someone who may not speak English. My last name tells people to ask if I speak English or speak really slow until I know otherwise. Growing up, I always heard things like,
Oh my God, you speak so well.
Your English is so good.
in awe of my fluency, as if I was supposed to speak it any other way. ¿Qué quieren? ¿Un acento? But at the end of the day, I'm not sure what I find worse. The fact that I can't speak English well and I'm assumed not to, or the fact that if I didn't speak it well, I would meet their expectations.
So, my roommate hit me in the arm. Any other guy would have just forgot about it and moved on. But this really took me by surprise and affected me. Here's why. So I came from a small, private, Catholic high school and was one of only few who didn't come from a Catholic middle school. Everyone seemed to know my business before I knew it myself, and I had a hard time connecting with people. But that all changed my junior year. I met someone who was very similar to me. He was adopted from Russia like I am, and his parents were divorced, like mine are. Looking back at it now, though, we had nothing in common besides our family background. I loved being around people and making new friends, and he hated being around other people and couldn't make a friend to save his life, except for me. Anyway, we seemed to get along pretty well, but that all seemed to go downhill spring break of our senior year. We decided to go with my family to the Caribbean rather than on our school's annual trip to Disney World. It was a good trip until one night he hit me. And little did I know the single swing he took would be the start of the worst friendship I would ever know. After he did it, I tried to justify his reasons behind it. He didn't mean it. He was drunk. Boys will be boys. But then it happened about a month later, but it was worse. More than just a swing. Yet even after this, I tried to justify it and consider it normal. It's a guy thing. Then he broke my foot. Yet even after a trip to the emergency room, I continued to lie to my parents about how it happened and still continued to be his friend. Then I studied abroad my first semester freshman year of college in Ireland. We would Skype. He was always angry. He was at home, and without me, had no friends. Then I came home, and we decided to hang out. He ended up drinking a lot and pulling a knife. He talked about how he wanted to kill me. He punched me in the face and knocked me out. Finally, he choked me on the ground until I managed to call a family member for help. Even after this occurred, my stepmom talked about how she wanted to throw him in jail, but I refused to let that happen. I still thought we would be friends. In the end, his family blocked me on Facebook and blamed me for everything. They wanted to forget that their son had a problem. They wanted to forget that the incident occurred altogether. A year later, at college, away from him, I was ready to get justice for myself. But at that point, it was too late. I think back to why I didn't do anything sooner. I had in my head that I was weak and couldn't defend myself, so I was less of a man. So often society forgets or even praises male-on-male aggression, but male violence occurs far more often than you would think, and its effects are dangerous. To this day, I still can't sleep without the TV on, think about high school, or go back home without thinking of the attack. Not a day goes by in my head where I don't think about him or how I could have got justice for myself. And the sad thing is, I bet he doesn't think about it at all, or if he does, it's just about how he got away with it. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, 1 in 4 males will be a victim of severe physical violence in their lifetime. Thank you.
Why autoethnography?
To be self-aware.
Because we reflect and create society.
Because our stories matter.
So do yours.
I am flawed. When I was 8 years old, my mother threw me into the bathtub and began to scrub and scrub and scrub to no avail, trying her hardest to rid my skin of what made it look dirty. 3 doctors later, and I find out that I have vitiligo, an autoimmune disease which tricks my body into thinking that my melanin is not good for me, that it needs to be destroyed. What's left are white splotches all over my body, kind of like a giraffe. I wasn't dirty, just different. So why is it that when I went to the doctor as a 20-year-old woman, comfortable in my own skin and with my body, that she asked if the nurse could come in to check me out because they had never seen such a case? When the nurse came in, all she could muster up to say was,
Well, at least it's not on your face.
but what if it was? I am flawed. And something that a lot of people don't know is that flawed people share this mutual sort of respect for one another. Nothing extreme, but a small wave here, a little head nod there, just something that says, hey, I'm here too. This is something I picked up early on in my life. Bringing me to this one time I'm in Walmart, and I'm minding my own business, going down the aisles, and I see these 3 guys, and they look like normal guys, you know? But I look closer, and they're not shopping at all. They're standing in a circle pointing at something. Following their finger, I see these 3 grown men pointing and laughing at a college kid with albinism. And each aisle that he moved down, they followed. They just couldn't get enough of it. They had to laugh at him because he didn't look like them. This kid has probably dealt with stuff all of his life, who's been laughed at before, who's flawed, like me. And I fell for him, and I couldn't let it go. I grabbed my cart and whipped it around, doing an entire 180 on wheels. And this flawed girl let it rip. Who are you to be laughing at him? How do you have the audacity to stand here and point and giggle like little kids? Grow up and leave him alone. Everyone in the store is looking at me. Me, a girl who just screamed her brains out in the middle of Walmart. I walked away shaking and crying with anger. No one deserves to be laughed at or made fun of or ridiculed, and no one deserves to be singled out because of how they look from things that they can't even prevent. I remember growing up flawed, the comments, the jokes. I remember how I felt when the nurse told me I was lucky to not have spots on my face, and I remember thinking, what about the people who do? What about the people who couldn't have handled that comment? I remember seeing that albino boy doing something as simple as buying what he was going to have for lunch the next day and not being able to get relief, not even for a moment. According to the Alberti Center for Bullying and Abuse Prevention, 18.5% of college undergraduates reported having been bullied in the past year.
I'll never forget what my parents taught me. Well, what they tried to teach me. When I was 10 years old, I learned the hard way that my parents are not perfect people, that they could make mistakes, and that they could be very, very wrong. I don't remember the specific details about the day or how everything came about. I just remember the arguments, the cussing, the slamming doors. My sister was dating a black guy. To this day, I don't know if their anger and frustration was due to their own personal disdain for his skin color, or if they were worried about what other people would have to say.
Didn't you raise her better than that?
Don't you want something better for her?
I just believe that everyone should stick to their own race.
Things are better now. My sister and her boyfriend live down the street from us. I go over to their house on Sundays, have a beer, watch football games. He's like the brother that I never had. But even though my parents evolved in their thinking and they accept things now, I don't know if I'll ever be able to forget when they tried to teach me that things like that aren't okay, when they tried to teach me that it wasn't fine, when they tried to teach me their mistakes. As recently as 1967, some states still had laws banning interracial marriage until Virginia versus Loving overturned these laws.
"2005, 5th grade. I was at my friend's 10th birthday party starting to eat my third slice of pepperoni pizza when I overheard another mother's voice telling my mom,
Wow, your daughter sure knows how to eat.
I didn't care though. I ate that third slice of pepperoni pizza. 2006, 6th grade. As I was reaching for my 4th chocolate chip cookie, I was stopped by my grandmother's voice saying,
Careful, Nicole. You better watch what you eat.
I listened to her and I put the cookie down. I was 11 years old when I became body conscious. 2008, 8th grade. We had just finished our intense nightly workout at gymnastics and I knew I was going to be sore in the morning. The next day at school, a group of 8th grade boys came up to me and tried to compare their muscles to mine. I hated the fact that I didn't have a girly slim figure like all of my friends. Not to mention, I was still in the itty bitty titty committee when everyone else had graduated and gone on with their womanly figure. I couldn't wait to lose my muscles. 2013, senior year of high school. I had been cheerleading for about 3 years now and my gymnastics days were far behind me. I remember standing in front of a mirror in my red, white, and black cheerleading uniform looking intensely at my figure. I could easily see the curves through my skin-tight fabric of my uniform. I remember looking in the mirror and feeling pretty content with my new figure, but still feeling like there's something that could be better. 2014. Freshman year of college ended and I went back to my parents' house for the summer. I stepped on the scale for the first time in a while and boy did I gain the freshman 15. In that moment, I could feel how snug my shorts were fitting and I could look down and see how I had suddenly acquired this nice beer gut. I remember wishing that I was a little bit less womanly now. I remember wishing that I could go back to the muscles that I hated so much at the time. 2017, current. Looking back, I really wish that I would have liked each and every body type that I had when I did, and I wish I could have embraced each and every one of them. Approximately 91% of women are unhappy with their body types and resort to dieting to try and achieve their ideal body image. Unfortunately, only 5% of women actually obtain the ideal body type portrayed by Americans in the media.
A few months ago, I woke up one morning very early with butterflies in my stomach as I headed to the airport with my boyfriend. Going through the security line, there was a problem with my carry-on. I was apparently taking too many regulation-sized sunscreens with me, something I had done before but never had an issue with. The security attendant thought they were my boyfriend's. Without explaining the situation, he just went up to him and asked, "What is your name?" My boyfriend replied, "Abdulaziz Sweetie." The attendant obviously became uncomfortable, stopped talking, and just threw away all the sunscreen we had for our trip. My boyfriend tried several times to get his attention. "Excuse me, sir, could you just tell us why you threw all of those away?" And was trying to explain that we were going to Mexico and we needed at least some of our sunscreen. No response. The attendant kept ignoring us, wouldn't even look at us. I could tell how bothered my boyfriend was. Nevertheless, he continued to ask politely. Eventually, a manager came over and helped us retrieve our sunscreen and told us there was never an issue with it in the first place. As we walked away, Abdulaziz told me he was sorry he did not just let it go, but that he couldn't. He said to me, he needed to know that he could not just silence me, that I would not accept being treated like that. I always have to be the bigger person in every situation, so at night when I reflect on my day, I know that he was the ignorant person, not me. When I look at Abdulaziz, I see an American, a Palestinian, and someone that greatly enriches this country. When I hear his name, I think about his father, his grandfather, and how much his family has risked and sacrificed for him to be here. Unfortunately, some people, like the attendant, see him as a threat, someone that doesn't belong. When they hear his name, they are scared, uncomfortable, and hateful. According to a study conducted by the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, approximately 0.0002% of Americans have been killed by Muslim terrorists since 9/11. According to these numbers, in 2013, you are more likely to be killed by your couch or TV collapsing on you than a Muslim terrorist.
What do you do to make the world better?
I include the excluded.
I hold the door open for the next person.
I help others rise.
What have you done?
12 years old. I was just trying to walk home from the park. It was summer vacation, but I still had curfew. I smile at my shoes that were now covered in a day's worth of play, and I wait at the crosswalk for the signal that I am safe to continue on. But I'm startled by two grown men who are leaning out their windows. They whistle. They holler something at me as I walk in front of their car, and they pull off far out of sight. What was that? What did I just experience? As I always did at this age, I ran home and asked my mother, to which she replied,
Someone must have found you awfully pretty.
"Oh." I looked down at my body and for the first time become aware of my adolescent figure. I don't yet have the full shape of a woman. I have Skechers and dirty knees. But men are looking at me. I am female. I should be flattered and welcome the male gaze. 13. At a football game. What a babe. 14. In my high school parking lot. Damn, girl.
14. On the street in New York City. Hey, baby, slow down.
15. Walking to a friend's house. Hey, sexy, where did you come from?
19. Stopped at a gas station pumping gas. A man looks at me and says, "A pretty girl with a body like that should smile more."
20. The man at the community dance rests his hands below my comfort zone.
20. Trying to walk home from class, a car pulls up to me with a man inside who yells, "Hey babe, need a ride?"
At 19, I learned that catcalling is street harassment. I learned that I don't have to accept these comments from strangers as compliments. And the women who share their stories with me label this rape culture. The fear of what could happen when women respond to street harassment silences us, for we don't know if it will end there with the comment or escalate to assault, as statistics show it can, and it has. It is a legitimate fear of being followed, of being cornered, of being groped, assaulted, murdered, if we respond to the wrong person the wrong way. 21. I stop at a deli on my lunch break. I step out of the car and my dress flies up from the wind and exposes me. Two grown men yell something at me from their car as they take off from a stop sign. In their eyes, a small force of nature, a slight mishap, turns me into a sexual object that invites validation from men I will surely never see again. To them, maybe I'll be an object of gratification forever. But to the millions of women who have been told that this behavior is flattering or just a compliment from the time that they were old enough to ride a bike, but know and feel and experience otherwise, I hear you. We hear you.
And you are not alone.
A research team at Cornell University surveyed 16,000 women from 20 countries and found that 84% of women are harassed on the street before they turn 17. 50% of these women reported being groped or fondled in public areas, and 71% had been followed by harassers.
How do you do it? How do you tell a story in someone else's voice? How do you tell their story without stealing their words? And yet it's a story that they can no longer tell themselves. And it's a tale surrounded with so much stigma that you would hear things such as,
"He didn't try hard enough."
If he would have just stayed out of trouble, none of this would have happened.
if he would have just. You can fill that silence with almost anything. Because for some reason, suddenly everyone seems to become an expert when they're put in someone else's shoes. It is so easy to say what someone could, should, or did. See, I know a young man, a friend of mine, that tried hard. He excelled. He always gave it his best. He succeeded athletically and academically. He was born into poverty, but no, that did not faze him. At the age of 17, he even signed a contract to enlist in the United States Marine Corps early because he had a desire to serve his community and protect what was his. At a younger age, he had the same desire, a desire to protect his community and belong. And he joined a gang, as many young men and women around that same age group do. This gang was an out for him. It was not a source of criminal activity where he just wanted to be vindictive and break the law. When my friend matured, he decided that this gang was no longer the right path for him. He decided that he had to get out. And unfortunately, it is very common for something called a blood in, blood out departure. That simply means for someone to join a gang, they must go through violent initiation, typically a beating or some kind of group harassment. And to leave, they must suffer the same consequences. But my friend decided that he was done with this lifestyle. So why should he have to suffer for a lifestyle he no longer wishes to be part of? At the age of 17, my friend resisted, and he was shot and killed. He gave his life to better his circumstances, and he did everything in his power to change. But it still was not enough. Over 40% of gang members are under the age of 18 or are considered children in the United States of America. And those 40% are 100 times more likely to suffer homicidal victimization rates than either you or I. Now, I know this is not a story you want to hear, but my friend is no longer around to tell it. But you still are.
First swallow, everything goes down fine. Second swallow, it expands in my mouth. Third bite, the expansion has progressed from my mouth to my chair. I'm aware of the space my body is filling and trying desperately to shove it into narrow hips and a small voice. I consciously skipped my first meal at age 12, but to be totally honest, I'd never been that good of an eater. When I was 5, I'd leave the table, run around the living room, come back, take a bite, and play some more. My grandparents learned to stop telling me I had to be finished before I could go play because after 2 bites, I'd be done. I was what they called a grazer, which is ironic considering how many times I compared my body with its visible rib cage to that of a cow. By age 10, I hadn't hit my growth spurt. My grandmother told Poppy to stop letting me eat sweets and ice cream because I was getting fat. She didn't know the window was open and I could hear. I learned the term Weight Watchers before I understood that it was not a group of women sitting around watching each other expand. After Grandma would go to bed, Poppy would fix us a banana split and we'd go in the living room, sit in his red-covered chair and watch the fishing channel. He'd say as the man on the TV reeled in his prized catch,
"Do not listen to her, girl."
Because I was beautiful just like my grandmother. But I didn't know how to tell him that she didn't think she was. I have never seen my mother eat. I've seen her move her food around on her plate and play with it like it's trying out for the Olympic figure skating team, but never actually eat. She always talks about her thighs, saying,
I carry my weight there.
It's her go-to phrase. And whenever people see us out together, they always say,
You look just like your mother.
And her response to me is always the same.
I'm sorry.
By age 14, I was down to 1 solid meal a day. I was 5'6" and weighed 115 pounds. My clothes hung off my hips, and my chest looked like something a 5-year-old would draw when they knew actual breasts were too provocative for their favorite purple crayon to produce. I tried shoving myself into a box that couldn't possibly get any smaller because the truth of the matter is, no matter how many meals you skip, your pelvis is not going to lose weight. Approximately 10% of college women report having a clinical or nearly clinical eating disorder. At age 21, I'm 5'7" and try my best to weigh 140 pounds. I go to therapy once a week, and my best friend texts me every single day to make sure I've had my 3 meals. My clothes still hang some days, but they aren't weighted down by unrealistic expectations or personal shame. I'm learning to live and eat with my eating disorder.
I am small, 5'4", 110 pounds. I don't really take up a lot of space, and I'm not generally a very loud person. Now, my big sister, on the other hand, is taller than me. She's louder than me, and she speaks her mind more often than I do. We have a cousin who's a boy, who she used to compete with a lot when they were kids. He speaks his mind too, and does so loudly, and the two of them would argue all the time. One time among family, my sister was defending her point of view in an argument with him. It was a silly argument, one about the meaning of a song, but the two of them had a way of making every disagreement sound serious. But upon hearing my sister speak, the family around her shook their heads disapprovingly.
Why does she have to be so bossy?
I didn't hear them calling my cousin bossy, even though he argued in the same way. In fact, I never heard them use that term for him once, but it kind of became a theme. They'd look to me and say,
"Why can't you be sweet like you?"
I wasn't doing anything sweet. I was just standing there, not taking up a lot of space, I suppose like a good girl should, and I wasn't speaking. But why does that make me sweet? And why does being the type of woman to speak up make my sister bossy? According to a study by the Center for Creative Leadership, women in leadership positions are twice as likely to be labeled bossy as their male counterparts.
What do you hope for?
That everyone helps.
To understand and be understood.
A world without borders.
A world where being a snowflake can maybe be a good thing.
According to the Center for Disease Control in 2015, 45% of all middle schoolers experience bullying on site. When I was a kid, I used to be very small. This made me an easy target for bullying, especially in middle school. I remember the crowd I used to run with would constantly make fun of me, belittle me to the point where I felt like nothing. But that one day on the lower soccer field crossed my line. You see, the kids that I hung out with were sort of questionable. This day, they thought it would be harmless if one of them started to pelt me with rocks. One by one, they all joined in until I had rocks coming at me from 5 different directions, all screaming and jeering the same question at me.
What are you going to do about it, shrimp?
As soon as I could, and as soon as I felt the rock stop pelting me, I seized the opportunity to grab the nearest stone at my feet and hurl it as hard as I could at the backs of their heads. I quickly realized what a big mistake this was. No sooner than I had time to react, and the same kid, along with 2 others, were holding me down and pelting me with rocks again, this time directly at my head. After that, they just let me to lay in the grass. Needless to say, it didn't take the teachers long to figure out what had happened and suspend the kids responsible. But in the end, I didn't care about the kids or what they had done. I just cared about the feeling that I was stuck with, that feeling of helplessness, and how I was never going to feel that way again. Next summer was spent bench pressing, doing push-ups, doing everything in my power to make myself as strong and big as I could have. Freshman year, I was lifting more weights than any other freshman, and others could start to see it too. I'm not bullied anymore, but I remember what it was like, and it's still happening on lots and lots of soccer fields to this day, and it needs to stop.
When I was little, my mother used to say that I was chocolate milk. She was the milk, my dad was the chocolate, and together they brewed me their sweet, warm cocoa. And for a long time, that was that. Until one day it wasn't. See, I started to realize how different I really was. In a world obsessed with black versus white, I was the hazy gray, and that wasn't okay. To them, there is no color spectrum, only one or the other, and I was the darker color. But when I spoke, they mocked me for being light. 71% of multiracial Americans have to deal with derogatory compliments and slurs, jokes made about their race. Things like, "Oh, you're so white, you speak so well, so well-spoken." Or, "Why are you acting fake? You're not black." What? Why do we have to carry on with your expectations? Why can't we just be us? Would it comfort you if we spoke how you think we should?
Yo, my nigga, if I talk like this, am I lit now? No, I'm not gonna be your walking stereotype. Just because I'm black doesn't mean I can't be eloquent, and eloquence doesn't hang with the whites only sign. I am me, and me is a beautiful blend that is not bound by your battle of colors. And we say it doesn't matter, and it shouldn't matter, but it does, and it always has. Society only loves you if you're buttercream, and it shuns you the more the sun has set on your skin. There is no love for the in-between, so I must learn to love me and my mud-blood skin that is not mud, but beautiful, blended, mixed, and mine. I'm not trying to act white, and I'm not escaping being black. I'm just being me. When I was little, my mother used to say that I was sweet like chocolate milk. I kiss my skin to say that I'm okay, and I taste it. Bittersweet coffee.
My family's favorite thing to do when I come home to visit is calculate the percentage of my body that's covered in tattoos. It was a Tuesday. It was freezing. I kept clicking the heels of my mind and nothing felt like home. I don't need to be saved. I don't need to be saved. Those words became my nest, my sanctuary. But my depression was quick to remind me that it's a lot more devastating when your demons are inside your mind and a byproduct of your own self-hatred. But for some reason, on this day, my run to the bathroom to grab my razor blade took a little bit longer, enough time to drag myself to 71st and York, where I would begin painting beautiful portraits of self-love on the canvas that is myself. 171 days later, and 12 tattoos have passed, each with a growing reminder of my darkest moments turned into a radical expression of self-love. There are still days where I feel lost. I am reminded of the two lines that rest beneath my shoulder blades, holding me up like wings that read, "I'm the hero of this story. I don't need to be saved." And in that moment, I am free. 1 in 5 females and 1 in 7 males will engage in acts of self-harm by the age of 13.
Look at me. I am an ocean, an open body filled with the fluidity of feelings and future, crashing on rocks, ships, and lighthouses, kissing the white sandy shores while the breeze gently caresses my cheek. I am filled with floaters and bottom feeders, crustaceans and killer whales, up to my neck with these water-dwelling, mind-dwelling creatures.
According to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, 40 million U.S. adults suffer from an anxiety disorder, and of them, 75% will experience their first episode of anxiety by age 22.
I am an ocean and you are the sun. I am absorbing your words and refracting back your light. Your heat pushes to break down my cool composition. These monsters inside me circle where you reach me. They are on the prowl. Your words, they construct into daggers. They leak from your lips and puncture my veins. I am an ocean and you are the sun. Your UV rays beam into my open body, super saturating my carbon concentration, poisoning my life-sustaining properties. The sharks scatter, searching for possible prey. The orcas concur, they are on the hunt. Ships batten down the hatches and trim the sails. The light disappears and covers you with thunderclouds overhead, stirring up tsunami tides in my eyes. They ripple from my fingertips. But when the clouds clear, you tell me, the ocean, that I am responsible for this disaster.
According to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, anxiety disorders result from a complex set of risk factors including brain chemistry, genetics, life events, and personality.
I am an ocean, a cascading whirlpool pulling everything into my destruction, waves beating against the boundaries of my brain. I am responsible for this disaster. I am the disaster. How can you say you are living, rising and setting each day when you are holding your eyes shut so tight? I do not know much about this world, but what I do know is that you cannot blame the ocean for the monsters inside of it, and you cannot blame the ocean for the storm you have created.
According to the National Survey of Mental Health, of the 30% adults that are diagnosed with anxiety, only 10 will receive proper treatment.
I am an ocean consistently churning and changing while you, the sun, realize you do not have all the control over the tides, for it's more than that. A gravitational pull of attraction between moon and water. The moon, he cups my face in his hands and pulls me up to the sky while my body still keeps me grounded. I am an ocean and he is the moon, shining light on my body each night that I never even realized was there, reflecting on the curves of my collarbone, the skin on my surface. The ocean and the moon, we whisper each night about the world. He giggles at my notion of being a disaster and says the best waves to ride come from a tsunami, but to not forget the swells that softly slide down my face, leaving behind a wake of organic authenticity, and I thank the moon for allowing the creatures inside me the darkness to rest each night, and for opening my eyes to the beauty I possess even long before the sun and the moon first rose in the sky. In a survey, the American College Health Association found that 1 in 6 college students have been diagnosed with or treated for anxiety. An open body filled with steady chaos in a world of pandemonium. These creatures inside me have been burned and battered, destructed and disassembled, but every single day, with the rise and fall of the moon and sun, my lips still kiss the shore and the breeze still caresses my cheek. Look at me. I am an ocean.
Why us?
Because we have a voice.
And we can speak.
And we're willing to push.
We have stories that need to be told.
Stories start a ripple effect.
Because you'll listen.
This matters.
And we can.
So we will.
Why not?
Who else?
If not us, then who?
We're the ones today.
It has to start somewhere.
We started it here.
What about you? And that's Reflections of Culture, presented by Just Us Performance Troupe for Social Justice and Com to 11 Storytelling and Culture. Please stay for a discussion after the show.